They called her the Golden Girl, the kind of beauty that made camera lenses soften just to capture her glow. In the 1,940 seconds, Carole Landis wasn't just another Hollywood face. She was the dream they sold to the world, radiant, hopeful, untouchable. Yet behind the light, there was a silence that no one dared to question. On a summer night in 1948, the door to her Brentwood home stayed closed for too long. Inside, the woman who once danced through war films and laughter lay still, her final hours marked by mystery, whispers, and a missing letter that would haunt Hollywood for decades. Those who knew her said she was planning her next project, full of life, far from despair. But someone else was with her that night, a man adored on screen, whose name the studios could never allow to be stained. When the truth finally reached the press, it came wrapped in perfection, polished, rehearsed, and incomplete. What really happened to Carole Landis, the Golden Girl who knew too much? Carole Landis was born Frances Lillian Mary Ridst in 1919, a small-town girl from Wisconsin with dreams too large for the world she came from. Her beauty and charisma were undeniable, and by her early 20s, she had already broken into Hollywood's golden era, the age of shining lights, glamour, and the illusion of perfection. Known for her dazzling presence in films like 1 Million BC. During World War II, while others hid from the darkness of the world, Carole traveled across continents to entertain soldiers, sometimes performing 3-4 shows a day. To them, she wasn't a movie star. She was hope wearing red lipstick. Her letters to soldiers revealed a warmth and humanity rarely found in Hollywood's carefully curated hearts. As the war ended, Hollywood shifted. Younger faces filled the screens, and the Golden Girl began to fade from casting lists. Carole fought to stay relevant, to prove that she was more than beauty. She could act, she could write, she could feel. Yet the studios didn't want feelings, they wanted control. She had the world's spotlight, but what waited for her in the shadows would change everything. Carole Landis grew up in the modest town of Fairchild, Wisconsin, a place where dreams seemed like things only heard about in movie reels. Her father left when she was a child, leaving her mother to raise 5 children alone. Yet even as a girl, Carole believed she was meant for something more. She would look at her reflection in the mirror and whisper, "One day, they'll know my name." At 16, she left school and home, determined to carve her own path. She worked as a waitress, a singer, and even joined a dance troupe before saving enough for a one-way ticket to Hollywood. It wasn't glamour that greeted her there, but closed doors and empty promises. Still, her persistence was as fierce as her beauty. Her break came with 1 Million BC, where she played Loana, the prehistoric beauty who captured the world's attention. That single role transformed her from an unknown extra to a headline name. Soon, she was on the covers of magazines, her face printed beside captions calling her the blonde bombshell of the new era. Hollywood adored her glow, but few noticed the loneliness behind her smile. Success wrapped itself around Carole Landis like a silk gown, beautiful but suffocating. The studios molded her into their perfect illusion, radiant, flirtatious, eternally cheerful. Every photograph demanded perfection. Every interview rehearsed innocence. Off camera, she was expected to smile through exhaustion, heartbreak, and the quiet ache of being owned by the dream factory. Fame opened doors, but it also closed others. Her personal life became a carousel of headlines, marriages that began in passion and ended in whispers, lovers who promised forever and disappeared with the morning light. Each broken piece of love left her softer, but never bitter. She still believed in people, even when they used her. As the war ended, Hollywood shifted. Younger faces filled the screens, and the Golden Girl began to fade from casting lists. Carole fought to stay relevant, to prove that she was more than beauty. She could act, she could write, she could feel. Yet the studios didn't want feelings, they wanted control. And when she met Rex Harrison, charming, powerful, already married, she found herself drawn into a love that could never be lived in daylight. For the first time, her heart wasn't the only thing at risk. By the late 1,940 seconds, the shimmer around Carole Landis had dimmed, though her beauty hadn't. Hollywood's spotlight was cruel once it turned away. It rarely looked back. Roles grew fewer, the parties quieter, and the laughter in her home began to echo in an unsettling way. But the world didn't see that. To the public, she was still the Golden Girl, radiant and unbreakable. But fame is rarely kind to those with too much heart. Behind the laughter and perfect poses, Carole's career began to drift in dangerous currents, whispers of politics, love affairs, and a studio system that decided who could rise and who must fall. Carole's friends noticed the change. She grew quieter, more reflective. She wrote in her journal about the emptiness that comes after applause. Yet she still showed up, radiant as ever, planning future films and even hosting dinners. There was no sign of surrender, only fatigue from fighting a system that thrived on silence. Those who knew her refused to believe the official version. Friends said she was full of plans, a new film, a trip, another chance. Her mother's voice trembled when she said, Carole was happy that week. She was coming back. But in a town built on image, truth was the first thing to be rewritten. Hours passed before anyone was let inside. What they found would become one of Hollywood's most whispered mysteries. Carole had left behind a letter, or at least, that was what the papers claimed. For hours, that letter was missing. When it reappeared, it had passed through too many hands, edited too neatly for coincidence. The police called it a tragedy. The studios called it an unfortunate event. And Rex Harrison, protected by his fame and his marriage, quietly left for New York. Behind closed doors, Carole's affair with Rex Harrison deepened. He was witty, magnetic, and dangerous in the way powerful men often are. He told her he loved her, that he would leave his wife, actress Lily Palmer, soon. And for a time, she believed him. But in Hollywood, love was a contract written in invisible ink. Harrison's promises began to fade, replaced by distance, excuses, and fear of scandal. Carole Landis's final scene was crafted not by her, but by the people who needed her story to end neatly, silently, and without consequence. In the years after her mysterious passing, Carole Landis became more than just another forgotten starlet. She became a cautionary echo of Hollywood's quiet cruelty. For those who remembered her, she was the girl who gave too much of herself to a world that only wanted her shine. Fans still wrote letters to studios demanding justice, questioning why no one had ever reopened the case, why Rex Harrison's name had faded clean while hers remained clouded by doubt. Her films, once light entertainment, took on new meaning. When audiences rewatched 1 Million BC or Topper Returns, they didn't just see beauty, they saw fragility hidden behind laughter. To this day, her USO performances for soldiers are remembered as acts of grace and courage, moments where she brought warmth to those who had nothing. Fellow actresses spoke of her kindness, her wit, her refusal to play the cold, ambitious stereotype Hollywood tried to impose. In a town where many survived by pretending, Carole dared to be real, and that, perhaps, was her greatest rebellion. Carole Landis may have been buried as the Golden Girl, but her true legacy was something far deeper. A reminder that even the brightest stars burn out fastest when the world keeps them shining for too long. Carole Landis's story is not just about glamour or heartbreak, it's about the fragile line between the star we see and the soul we ignore. She lived in the glow of perfection, framed by Hollywood's golden lights, yet her truth existed in the spaces those lights never reached. Fame gave her a crown of brilliance, but it also built the walls that trapped her inside an image too flawless to be human. In the end, her silence spoke louder than the applause that once followed her. She revealed, even in absence, how the dream machine of Hollywood could create beauty and destroy it in the same breath. Behind every red carpet photo and glowing headline was a woman fighting to be heard, and when her voice was taken, the world pretended not to notice. Carole Landis stands today as a haunting reflection of what it costs to live under constant illumination. Her name may be written in gold, but the truth of her story lives in the shadows she left behind, quiet, eternal, unforgettable. What do you remember most about Carole Landis, the laughter, the beauty, or the silence that followed her name? In a world that still celebrates perfection, her story reminds us that even golden light can hide deep shadows. Those who knew her refused to believe the official version. Friends said she was full of plans, a new film, a trip, another chance. Her mother's voice trembled when she said, Carole was happy that week. She was coming back. But in a town built on image, truth was the first thing to be rewritten. If her life touched you, share the memory. Tell us which moment, which role, still lingers in your heart. Because stories like hers deserve to be remembered not as gossip, but as truth beneath the glamour. This is Fame and Shadows, where every star has its story, and every story has its silence.